Okay, did you discover something new about hope through the process of comparing? Did anybody discover that in your conversation there was some connection between hope and faith, for example, or hope and love? Did anybody have the question of truth or truth-telling, or the potential blindness of hope show up in your stories? Okay, so I'm going to turn the corner now, and I'm going to look at some of the hazards of hope. In our folklore, we have the idea that hope is blind, and if I was to refine that a little bit more, I would say that when we focus only on the light, we miss an awful lot. And if half of our world is hidden from our view, we're going to be blindsided a lot. And rather than just talking about the negative side of hope, I'm going to draw from another wisdom tradition, and this is the Taoist tradition of China. This is the nature religion of China. And instead of hope as a cardinal virtue, they put up the cardinal virtue of Wu Wei, which literally means not doing, or letting go, or letting all things be. In the Taoist tradition, it's not assumed that just because we want to make the world better, we will succeed. We don't always know what better is. And if we live in a culture, if we live in a society with power, privilege, and wealth are highly stratified, it's very easy to do good for people like us and disadvantage the vast majority. So when it comes to doing good and our desire to make the world a better place, it might be a good idea to ask, better for whom? And at what cost? And who is actually paying the debts for this momentary burst of euphoria that people in a certain class or caste position get to enjoy? What if, the Taoist tradition asked, what if this world is not organized in terms of linear chains of cause and effect? What if, at least when we are engaged in embodied action, which I think we are almost all the time, what if those bodies are immersed in a matrix of circular and more complex patterns of cause and effect? Cause and effect. What if every point of view has a blind spot? What if our actions or our intentions to make the world a better place need to be judged not just by our intention? And almost everybody I know proclaims how good their intentions are. What if we need to judge whether we're making the world better or not based upon the consequences for other people, for other beings? That first principle that we lift up, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, I add, and every being. It's not just about us. The cosmos does not revolve around us. And sometimes, when I try too hard to make something better, I really mess it up. What if the standard for making the world a better place, the standard for tikkun, was the good of all beings, not just now, but for 7 generations to come? So that suggests a very different, and to just bring it down to one thing, all over the country, Unitarian and Universalist and UCC ministers spend Friday and Saturday night in a wrestling match. And on one side is hope, and on the other side is truth, and on a good week we attempt to acknowledge both what is true and what is hopeful. Some weeks it's a losing struggle. And if we learn too much about what's going on the ground in Ukraine, hope can be very hard to come by, and the price is exceedingly high. You remember, as a kid, growing up with friends who were Jewish, some of whose parents or grandparents were murdered? I remember saying never again. And here we are again. Except, hopefully, said the Hope Junkie, this time we are mobilizing more resources sooner to protect those who cannot protect themselves. So hope is a mixed bag. And when I get overly hopeful, when I get euphoric, and with Aunt Maddie I'm about to fly away, I try to pay attention to someone's life whose life is not working as well as mine right now. I'm going to end with a poem, which is one way that we attempt to ensure that hope and truth can end up on the same page, attended by beauty. This is called The Wintry Edge of Spring. We seem to be stuck on the wintry side of spring, temps near freezing with a bone-chilling wind, and no amount of wishful thinking can hasten the sunny, warm spring days we remember and yearn for. Unless we're willing to live only for the 1 or 2 days per week that fit our brightest dreams and hunker down and in. But if we do, we may miss the actual transit, which oscillates back and forth from winter to spring to winter again. We might miss the emerald fires of moss that encircle the meadow under our feet. In this world, there is little linear progression unless we impose it by force and ignore the painful consequences for all beings except ourselves and those just like us. In this world, we share for a while. Most events move in circles and spirals, and sometimes beginnings and endings come together and circle each other effortlessly as breathing in and breathing out in a covenant old as rain and the rivers that rise to meet it. Hope, truth, beauty. These three abide. But what sustains my life is beauty. Amen. And blessed be. Kristen has suggested that we take some time for questions. I'm going to put in some nonverbal plugs. Stand by Ukraine, show up for the work party. Questions or comments? And I hope I didn't step on the toes of those that are highly invested in hope with no shadows.
I just have a trivial question.
Yeah.
these characters in your family that you bring up all the time, are they real?
Oh,
Is it real?
oh yeah. Yeah, Aunt Mattie was one of the many younger sisters of Ed Staines Beckwith, and she was a powerhouse. And though we differ, maybe, in the content of her faith, I really admire the audacity with which she lived her faith. We're on the same page. But yes, these characters are indeed real. And, Aunt Mattie had a slight bit of mischief, and she occasionally says, well, Teddy, you might want to brush up on your Bible verses, those old-fashioned hymns. You might need them someday. Might. Other questions or comments? Puzzlements? Did I hurt anybody's feelings? That's a miracle. To speak the truth as I understand it and not hurt people's feelings, that is a supreme challenge. Does anybody have a poem you want to read?
I have a comment.
Yes, Krista, please.
I appreciate with the reading you did at the end there, just talking about if we're holding on to an image of, oh yeah, what a beautiful spring day will be, that we're checking out from what is present before us.
Yeah, there's paying attention to what is true is not necessarily easy, but without that curiosity about how things actually work, we wouldn't be in this room, we'd be shivering outside somewhere, David.
So my best friend from grad school grew up in Cleveland, Jewish, and he talks about this restaurant whose tagline was, not a great restaurant, but consider the alternative. And to me, hope is the same thing. Maybe not a great new life, but consider the alternative. If you go through life without hope, I don't think you go through life very far. And as far as we know, this is the one kick the can that we've got. And so we're trying to be miserable.
My dad said very much the same thing when you think I'm hopeful. My father was relentless. He sold advertising. He stood up for the Democratic Party. He was relentlessly hopeful. He used to say, Ted, what's the alternative? Same point. Well taken. Yes.
Have you ever heard the Bob Dylan poem, Last Thoughts on Woody Guthrie?
I don't know it, but I should.
It's really wonderful, and at the end he talks about hope.
What's the title again?
Last Thoughts on Woody Guthrie.
Okay.
It's the only poem he's written thousands of poems, but that's the only one he read in public.
Oh my goodness, what a gift. I will find that before the day is done. Probably soon. Thank you. Any other resources that I should consult? Since clearly this is Thomas.
You can find a recording of him doing that live, and it goes on for about 8 minutes. So
oh my goodness! Wow.
My question is can we hope to hear you talk on beauty some Sunday?
Oh, thank you. Well, we'll see. It's good to be a guest. If you want to invite me back on First Sundays, I'm available on First Sundays. But let's see what happens. Sue?
This is way off the subject, but it's what's on my subject is on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Is in the last few days, couple weeks, I have had, and some of them are friends of you, several friends who gave up and decided to die rather than to live. And that's what's been on my mind. And then the hopeful thing is, when I was having twins, and I had one son already, and the first twin was a son, I had 9 minutes of desperate hope. And the second one was a daughter. Because I knew we weren't going to get pregnant again.
Yeah. And you got to tell us now, so what happened?
So what, the second one was a daughter, yes.
Hey.
Jennifer is one of my best
Yeah.
friends.
Yeah, probably giving birth, getting married, dedicating a child, are occasions that call forth the necessity of hope. Again, what's the alternative?
His
My-
birthday is today, by the way.
Whose?
My friend, his birthday is
Oh, that's wonderful.
like mine.
That's fabulous. Man, what a great day they have for a birthday. Josh, your birthday was yesterday?
Yes, it was.
We're not going to ask you how many, but congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, I think we've reached the appointed hour of departure. We've got a wonderful song. Thomas is going to lead us. We have the words will be up here. Let's give it our best shot.
And then Nicole, can you tell us how that's gonna work?
Yes,
Can,
I mean.
Don will tell you how it's going to work. I just provided the WD-40 to get it in the
Well, I don't expect you to follow the song unless you know it.
Yeah,
It's
and
a,
wait till you see the lyrics.
I will just tell you this about it.
The next one is better.
It's in two parts. There are a couple of verses and choruses, and then there's a kind of an extended coda that repeats a this train refrain, okay? And there's opportunities to kind of echo my this train, think gospel, and you'll get as close to it as you can. When this song,
Can we stand up?
what's that?
Let's stand up and
Yeah,
sing like we
absolutely.
mean it.
Maybe I should take the mic here
Yeah,
too.
please.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Okay, all right. I want to just say a couple words about this song. This is a Springsteen song from around the end of the last century. And I thought when I first heard it that maybe it was about a couple of things together. He was approaching age 50. We were approaching the crossing into the new millennium, and I thought maybe that's what it was about. There was some sense of transition and some sense of desperation and not being able to go back to where we had been. These days, with the refugee crises that the world is experiencing, I'm seeing it or hearing it in a different way. So you can apply it to any of those things. I think it's a rich song that has outlasted its original context. Guitars don't like this weather.
No, too wet.
It was in tune when I put it back there. This is good enough. Grab your ticket in your suitcase. Thunder's rolling down this track. You don't know where you're going, but you know you won't be back. So darling, if you're weary, put your head up on my chest. We'll take what we can carry, and we'll leave the rest. Big wheels roll through fields where sunlight streams. Meet me in a land of open dreams. Well, I will provide for you, and I stand by your side. You need a good companion now for this part of the ride. Leave behind your sorrow, let this day be the last. Tomorrow there'll be sunshine, and all this darkness past. A big
streams. Meet me in a land of open dreams. Well, this train carries saints and sinners. This train carries losers and winners. This train carries whores and gamblers. This train carries lost souls. This train carries broken hearted. This train, thieves and sweet souls departed. This train carries fools, carries kings. This train, all aboard, I said this train, dreams will not be thwarted. This train, faith will be rewarded. This train, and still we'll sing it now. This train, bells of freedom ring. Well, now this train carries saints and sinners. This train carries losers and winners. This train carries whores and gamblers. This train carries lost souls. I said this train carries broken hearted. This train, thieves and sweet souls departed. This train carries fools, carries kings. This train, all aboard, I say this train, dreams will not be thwarted. This train, it will be rewarded. This train, yet still we'll sing now. This train, bells of freedom ring. This train. Good job. Good job, everybody.